Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Philosopher's Stoned. Tonight's episode is another kickoff to a little series about Nazi occultism and the secret societies that ignited that. So we're going to get into the Thule Society and the Vril Society and all the trappings around it. I'm just reporting on the weird shit that people don't know about when it comes to the beginnings of all of that shit. So I'm going to jump right into it. So the Vril Society and the Thule Society. So let's start with where they began and came from. Starts out with a guy named Edward Bulwer Lytton. He was a high-ranking member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a branch that came from the English Rosicrucian Order, which was a very esoteric secret society. I'm going to do an episode on them soon. In 1871, he wrote a fiction book called The Coming Race, or The Power of the Coming Race, which is where the Vril Society completely originates from. Being a high-ranking member entitled this dude to occult esoteric knowledge. The book was masked as fiction, so the masses would only read it as that. Just fiction. The truth is, there was a lot of symbolism and hidden meanings behind the deep text in the novel. He used this platform just like the esoteric occultist symbolism that's embedded in everything we see and hear in the mainstream media today. In this book, a subterranean superhuman angelic race called the Vrilia, who harness the power of Vril, an all-permeating fluid that contains limitless power because they can somehow use the power of it with, you guessed it, their minds. This power is basically some superhero shit. They can destroy mountains, raise the earth, heal mass amounts of people, pretty much the power of what most believe to be a god or a creator god. The Vrilia have been patiently waiting for the time to come above the surface and completely wipe out all of humanity and bring their own empire onto outer Earth. It's noted that these beings were descendants of the civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis. Next on the list is a man named Dietrich Eckart, a German journalist, playwright, poet, and politician who is connected with the Thule Society but not necessarily a member. He was one of the founding members of the German Workers' Party, which some of you know was the precursor to the Nazi Party. Eckart met Hitler in 1919 after watching Hitler give a speech to the DAP members, and Eckart had previously anticipated finding and meeting a German Messiah. He even wrote about it in a poem months before he even met Hitler. Eckart believed he was in contact with an advanced alien race who held the secret to the most powerful power in the whole fucking universe, which I'm guessing is the Vril or the Vrilia. Now here we get into the paranormal occult lady, Maria Orsic. She was Hitler's medium or telepath. In 1917, she fell very ill with the flu and went into some kind of trance. Her consciousness had left her body and was traveling through space on a higher plane of existence and a dimension without time. Here is where she encountered huge beams of flickering light, orbs maybe of some kind, and they spoke to her. They said they were an alien race and they'd be back when she was recovered from her illness. This is the beginning of her contact with the alien race. Now, this alien race kept that promise and would frequently contact her, revealing themselves to be the Aryans of Aldebaran. They relayed a prophecy to her about a charismatic leader with fiery eyes, and he would bring Germany to renewed greatness, and this prophet was named none other than Adolf Hitler. The aliens revealed her mission finally. She would be gifted with the blueprints of a technically advanced ship that was capable of flying into space, but this technology was ancient and complex. But don't worry, they will help her along the way. Every time she was put into a trance by these aliens, she would take notes through some type of telepathic, automatic writing technique, not even understanding what she was writing down. Her father was keen on engineering and mechanics, so he took a look at her notes, but he couldn't really understand it at all. The notes were also in another language he didn't understand, but he was able to figure out that this language was ancient Sumerian. So a cuneiform language was being automatically, telepathically transmitted from aliens to this German medium. Whatever. The aliens promised her she would be able to harness the power of Vril and become as powerful as themselves. Now, in December of 1919, a meeting occurred in Germany in the Forster Lodge involving a small group of members from the Thule Society, the Vril Society, and the Lords of the Black Stone. 2 mediums were present at this meeting, Maria Orsic and another only known as Sigrun. Maria Orsic claims to have received the technical data for a type of advanced flying machine. Allegedly, these telepathic messages came from the solar system Aldebaran, which is 64 light years away in the constellation Taurus. So now I'm going to try to explain more of the Thule Society. They were originally a German study group headed by Walter Neuhaus, a war veteran turned art student who was the keeper of the Order of the Teutons, which was a secret society founded in 1911. He moved to Munich in 1917 and basically changed the name of the society to the Thule Gesellschaft. In 1918, Neuhaus was contacted by occultist Rudolf von Sabotendorf, the head of the Bavarian province of the German Norden, Walvater of the Holy Grail. I'm going to fuck up these names because I just don't know how to pronounce them. The 2 men became associates, and this is where they started working under the Thule Society name. They identified Ultima Thule, said by Nazi mystics to be the capital of ancient Hyperborea, as a lost ancient landmass in the extreme north, near Greenland or Iceland. So, if you're into this kind of stuff, you probably have heard of Hyperborea. I'm going to cover that in a whole episode itself. These ideas derive from earlier speculation by Ignatius L. Donnelly that a lost landmass had once existed in the Atlantic and that it was the home of the Aryan race, a theory he supported by reference to the distribution of swastika motifs. He identified this with Plato's Atlantis, a theory further developed by Helena Blavatsky, an occultist during the second part of the 19th century. So, the name Thule refers to the capital of the legendary polar country, Hyperborea, also referred to as Ultima Thule. It was supposedly the gateway to another world. Thule was therefore recognized as a place where humans could, by whatever means, leave the earth. It also reputedly stood at the portal of the hollow earth. Interestingly, the major players in the 20th century, the USA and the Russian Federation, have ELF, extra low frequency transmitters, sited in this area. These transmitters are supposedly used to communicate with submerged submarines, but worryingly, they broadcast these messages at brainwave frequencies around 18 to 20 hertz. Now, traditionally, the Hyperboreans were in contact with extraterrestrials or alien cultures. In some versions of this, there was interbreeding. In common with the legendary inhabitants of Atlantis, they engaged in war with neighboring civilizations. This escalated into the use of atomic weapons, resulting in a victory for the Hyperboreans, who, as well as defeating their enemies, virtually destroyed themselves in the process. Kind of like the aliens that warn us, hey, you guys are using too many weapons that are going to end up killing you. In common with radiation damage in recent times, the surviving Hyperboreans were soon faced with the prospect of mutated and otherwise damaged offspring. Showing remarkable resolve, those who had not sustained any apparent genetic damage banded together and effectively removed themselves from the gene pool, a variety of self-imposed quarantine to keep the bloodline pure. Well, the bloodline pure and healthy. Any damaged offspring from this group were neutered and probably sent off to some type of gulag. This early example of eugenics was practiced until they were sure that any defective genes had been bred out. The other mutated group eventually died out. Whether they were assisted in this is open to debate, like a firing squad. Like, hey, you guys are inbreds, we're about to kill you. This may seem like, and indeed is, a harsh clinical line to adopt, but being faced with the extinction of their entire race, they had really not a lot of options. Now, the descendants of this seminal mother race were the Celts, who, like the ripples on a pond, spread out, colonizing various northern areas of the planet. Scots, Irish, Basques, Spanish, Scandinavians, Icelanders, and the Portuguese. All these people are of Celtic origin. These disparate nationalities have one common genetic trait, a large percentage of the Rh negative blood types, which you'll hear David Icke talk about being a reptilian blood. Now, according to the beliefs of the Thule Society, this characteristic of the Hyperboreans and their extraterrestrial associates was the Rh negative blood type. In recent times, the majority of alien abductees are reportedly from Rh negative blood groups. So, is this a possible indication that UFO cultures are tracking their crossbred progeny? Now, other races and peoples who possess a positive blood type were considered to be racially impure, as positive blood is thought to be contaminated by contact with the ape-evolved strand of human DNA, so the regular people who came from the apes. Alright, now we're gonna jump into the Vril side of it. The Vril emblem was the black sun, a secret philosophy thousands of years old, provided the foundation on which the occult practitioners of the Third Reich would later build. The black sun symbol can be found in many Babylonian and Assyrian places of worship. They depicted the black sun, the Godhead's inner light, in the form of a cross. This was not much different from the German Knight's Cross. So, with supposed channeled information from ETs, the Vril Society built the Vril machine. It was a saucer-shaped, and it was supposedly an interdimensional or time travel machine. I'm probably going to cover this part more on the part 2 with the Die Glockenspiel and the whole Nazi bell that was supposedly a spaceship made by Nazis that was able to time travel. But let's get back to the story. So the Vril Society began around the same time as the Thule Society, when Karl Hoschover founded the Bruder des Licht, which means Brothers of the Light. This organization is sometimes referred to as the Luminous Lodge. This group was eventually renamed the Vril Gesellschaft as it rose in prominence and united three major societies: the Lords of the Black Stone, having emerged from the Teutonic Order in 1917, the Black Knights of the Thule Society, the Black Sun, later identified as the elite Heinrich Himmler's SS. See how this all connects? In Leighton's The Coming Race book, the subterranean people used the Vril force to operate and govern the world. It's good to note that a few children armed with Vril-powered rods are said to be capable of exterminating a race of over 22 million threatening barbarians. What the fuck ever, dude. So, served by robots and able to fly on Vril-powered wings, the vegetarian Vrilia are, by their own reckoning, racially and culturally superior to everyone else on Earth, above or below the ground. Are you seeing the similarities between the shit Hitler was saying about a new coming Aryan race that he was supposed to prepare the world for? Fucking psychopath. At one point, the narrator concludes that the Vrilia are descended from the same ancestors as the great Aryan family, from which in varied streams has flowed the dominant civilization of the world. End quote. The Vril force or Vril energy was said to be derived from the Black Sun, a big ball of prima materia, which supposedly exists in the center of the Earth, giving light to the Vrilia and putting out radiation in the form of Vril. The Vril Society believed that Aryans were the actual biological ancestors of the Black Sun. This force was known to the ancients under many names, and it has been called Chi, Ohas, Vril, Astral Light, Odic Forces, and Orgon. Stepping on some sketchy territory here now. In a discussion of the 28th degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry, called Knight of the Sun or Prince Adept, Albert Pike said, quote, "There is in nature one most potent force, by means whereof a single man who could possess himself of it, and should know how to direct it, could revolutionize and change the face of the world." Was he talking about Vril or Vrilia? Not sure. This is the force that the Nazis and their inner occult circle were so desperately trying to unleash upon the world, for which the Vril Society had apparently groomed Hitler. A manifestation of the great work promulgated by the adepts of secret societies throughout the ages, the Vril Society latched on to a very old archetype already in the minds of alchemists and magicians, which was only reinterpreted by Leighton, the author of that fiction book, in light of that age of occult revival and scientific progress. The idea of mutation and transformation into a higher form of a God-man was envisioned through the Vrilia in that book. The author himself was an initiate of the Rosicrucians, like I said before, and was well versed in the arcane esoteric philosophies, which doesn't surprise me at all. This is where the philosophy turns dangerous. So this is where the philosophy turns dangerous? I feel like it turned dangerous as soon as it was created. So here's where we get on Miss Blavatsky, old Madame Blavatsky. The New World Order, so vehemently opposed, is under the direct influence and guidance of the New Age movement, a hodgepodge of occult doctrines and dangerous socialism which hides under a cover of spiritual enlightenment. Theosophy is considered the main foundation, and its founder, Madame Blavatsky, was a great admirer of Leighton's. Blavatsky had read Bulwer Lytton's novels and was very impressed by their occult content, especially Zenoni and The Last Days of Pompeii. The latter was published in 1834 and dealt with the time between early Christianity and the mysteries of Isis in Italy in the 1st century A.D. Blavatsky's esotericism was very anti-Christian, and the radical ideas of Madame Blavatsky concerning root races and the emergence of a spiritually developed type of human being in the Aquarian Age were avidly accepted by the 19th century German nationalists who mixed theosophical occultism with anti-Semitism and the doctrine of the racial supremacy of the Aryan or Indo-European peoples. So you see kind of how his whole anti-Jewish, anti-everyone that's not blonde hair, blue-eyed, white agenda is getting created and pushed here. So this tradition of the dragon and the sun, occasionally replaced by the moon, has awakened echoes in the remotest parts of the world. It may be accounted for with perfect readiness by the once universal heliolatrous religion. And there was a time when Asia, Europe, Africa, and America were covered with the temples sacred to the sun and the dragon. I know that was a lot of hard to understand reading, because goddamn, I've been fucking researching this for weeks now, and it's still so... I get it, I understand what they're saying, what the history is behind it, but really, I'm just trying to shed light on how deep these early Germanic secret societies were into the occult that somehow stepped up and became what we know as the Nazi Party or the Nazi regime or the Third Reich. So there's a lot more to it, and I'm going to get into that on part 2. Because Hitler starts doing rituals, he builds a spaceship, all that shit. And he could have escaped, he might not have died. He might have hopped in the spaceship with some of his blonde Austrian bitches and fucking zoomed off to the hollow earth. That's another part that I'm going to cover. This connects with the hollow earth. I didn't even get on that on this on this one. I know this is a weird subject and a lot of people write it off because they just don't want to hear about Hitler anymore, which I understand. I mean, for a long time I wrote this shit off as fucking gobbledygook, like Hitler wasn't into this shit. But then I started reading, and it seems pretty evident that there was some esoteric, occult, ritual type shit going on in the very early days. Please bear with me on this. The part 2 of this is going to be a lot easier to understand. So just stay tuned. If this episode sparked any interest in this shit at all, stay tuned. Wait for part 2. It'll be coming soon. That's going to be a lot easier for me to get together because this was a bunch of fucking reading that I didn't really enjoy that much. Thank you for watching Philosopher's Stoned, and in the meantime, if you encounter a Nazi and then go on Twitter and talk about punching Nazis, you better go back and punch that fucking Nazi, you fucking coward. Shut the fuck up. Stop saying shit you ain't gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Peace.